بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Brothers and sisters, we're doing a little something different this evening. The series known as Urban Duat Dialogue. And this particular series will highlight brothers involved in dawah within urban and or inner city areas, yani areas that are predominantly Black and Latino. And so what I hope to do, by Allah's permission, is to have some brief dialogue with brothers who are involved in dawah within these areas on various topics related to these areas and the dawah being given therein. And today, when dealing with this particular subject, we have a special guest, and I won't prolong it any further. I'll allow the guest to introduce himself. So the first question would be to the guest, without a doubt, what is your name? And what are you currently doing in terms of dawah? Now, barakallahu fiik. Tafadhal ya akhi.
نعم. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وبعد. Alhamdulillah. My name is Abu Abdis Salaam Al Juyaanee. I'm currently located in Orlando, Florida, and I'm the Imam of the Muslim Community Center of Apopka. This is in addition to the website and publication company that I run. Also, there is a podcast, so on and so forth from some of the dawah activities that are current.
No. You say you're in Apopka, correct?
Apopka, yes, and that is a town on the outside of Orlando.
Okay.
Nah, alhamdulillah.
Now, as a person who lived in New Jersey in the 90s, then the question would be, how was Islam's influence there at that time? And how is it that you became Muslim, especially with the, as it relates to Islam in New Jersey? What part of New Jersey specifically as well?
Now, alhamdulillah, I was born in Paterson, New Jersey. Alhamdulillah. My coming to Islam is a story within itself. Yani, just a summarized version and a snapshot of it. Alhamdulillah, I was raised in a family that was Christian, Baptist. They were fairly religious. They would go to church every week. They weren't those who just, went to church a few times a year, but they were there weekly. And they always tried to put me in a good environment. So early on, my preschooling, and that was in the church. In the church's preschool. Then I went to a school called Dawn Treader, which was an elementary school that was a private Christian elementary school where we received religious instructions as well as interdisciplinary instruction. And my mother, Jazakallah Khairah, she's Muslim, as well my sister and the like, always tried to, put us in, the best environment possible, right? So I came up, with some knowledge of Christianity that was taught to me. And of course, this brought questions to mind as relates to some of the core fundamental beliefs of Christianity that just didn't sit well, didn't resonate. And this is in light of studying the Bible. So long story short, the Bible actually was that which led me to disbelieve in Christianity, right? And there was and this is important to understand, this was a long process, in the sense of seemingly long, not long in reality, but meaning that when I first sought to become religious, I didn't know anything but Christianity. So I didn't look outside of Christianity, right? So I began with the book that Christians say they believed in. So I started reading the Bible from Genesis to the end, to Revelations. And when the questions came up, I would see that the aqidah that was taught in the Bible was different from that which was being taught inside of the church. And this brought questions that they couldn't answer. Now, if you take that coupled with the fact of just the things I was going through in life, you know, from organized sports to my involvement in the music industry and so on and so forth, it had felt as if I lived a whole lifetime by the time that I became Muslim. At that time, like I said, for me, it seemed like a long time. It seemed like a lifetime. But I became Muslim when I was in the 10th grade. And that, alhamdulillah, changed my life tremendously. So as far as Islam in New Jersey at that time, then it wasn't as prolific as it is now. Although the Muslims, they were there in numbers in different areas, in different parts, in different sections, but it wasn't to the extent that we see now. Walillah alhamd. There was, as far as people being upon the Sunnah at that time, then they were scarce. This was a time now, and you're talking, I became Muslim in 1993. At that time, you were either with the Wafd Muhammad community or you weren't, right? And if you weren't, then that means, you know, from those who we had access to at that time, it was popular. So then you would listen to the likes of Siraj Wahaj, you would listen to the likes of Anwar Muhammad from Philadelphia, anybody that wasn't with the Wafd Muhammad community, right? So that was kind of the experience. And even with that, there wasn't much else going on. And then, alhamdulillah, around late 93, early 94, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me to become aware of Dawud Adib. And at the time, he was the Imam in Lincoln Street Masjid in East Orange, New Jersey. And I had actually heard a tape of his prior to that, where I was very intrigued by him, right? I had no idea he was living so close to me, but I was very intrigued by him and very interested because his whole approach, everything was different than Siraj. It was different than what Anwar Muhammad was talking about. It was different than Zayd Shakir. This was the time when Zayd Shakir was still on the East Coast, right? Prior to him going to Syria and becoming Sufi and of this nature. Ala kulli hal, it was very different. So when some of the brothers in my area, mind you now, I'm still in high school, so I don't drive, right? So when some of the brothers in my area, they say, hey, you want to go to Jumu'ah? And basically my answer was always the same. If you come get me, I'm going to go. You know, of course I want to go to Jumu'ah, but meaning, do you want to go to Jumu'ah in East Orange with, you know, Lincoln Street? I said, hey, if you come get me, I'm going to go. No problem, right? So alhamdulillah, they came, they got me. And to my surprise, this individual who I had been listening to his tapes and his lectures and was so intrigued by, Dawud Adib, he was the imam there, right? MashaAllah. And alhamdulillah, he taught us in a beautiful way. In fact, it was Sheikh Dawud who called me to Salafiyah, taught me what is Salafiyah. Now, alhamdulillah, that was my first experience. You know, he introduced me to the likes of Sheikh Al-Albani, to the likes of Imam bin Baz, Imam Al-Albani, Imam bin Baz, Imam Uthaymeen, Imam Muqbil. The first time I ever heard any of their names was Sheikh Dawood teaching us about these great Imams. And again, they were so outstanding. One would think that they had to have lived so long ago. And again, to my surprise, they were alive. They were, you know, alhamdulillah. So this was a very key moment in the history of Islam, a very key moment in the history of the people of the Sunnah in America, because this was one of the first times where the Sunnah was being taught. This was one of the first times when Salafiyya was being taught. The likes of Sheikh Dawud and Sheikh Abu Uwais, rahimahullah ta'ala. These were some of the pioneers in calling the people to Salafiyya in America, in America. And likewise, our elders, Abu Zainab Tawfiq was very active also in the 90s, calling people to Salafiyya in Pennsylvania. And he had called our brother Abu Muhammad Al-Jamaiki to Salafiyya. And our brother Abu Muhammad Al-Jamaiki likewise was very active in calling people to the Sunnah in Pennsylvania at that time. And I'm saying this because sometimes the narrative, when you listen to certain individuals, names get omitted. People who are known become unknown. People who, their track record is known becomes unknown. People who were children, some weren't even Muslim at the time. Now they become the elders. These young elders who myself and the likes of the brothers were mentioned are older than these individuals, right? So it's just important just to, so people understand the narrative is not as they may have heard. But again, in each of these questions, like I said, there's so much more that can be got into a depth and detail upon each. So for that, I'll leave that one. I'll leave that one right there, inshallah.
Well, without a doubt, Sheikh Dawud Adib, I believe that his impact for those who are being just and those who are being honest as it relates to the spread of and the methodology of Ahlul Sunnah in the States, his impact is tremendous. But it's as you said, when these matters, especially as it relates to history and Dawah in America, is brought up, it seems that Sheikh Dawood is omitted literally from history. I mean, I've saw a lot of different interviews, and he's barely brought up at any real point whatsoever. But his impact on the Dawah was tremendous, especially with the audio that he had. I'm not sure what year that he did this particular lecture, but the "Why You Should Be Muslim" lecture that he did, that was the reason, by Allah's permission, for a lot of people entering into Islam. So we know that Dawud Adib's impact was tremendous. And so,
and if I may add on that point, not just for the common everyday Muslims, right? But Sheikh Dawood, I remember one time, and I'm not going to get into the names because some of these people don't deserve no airtime, just to be quite honest with you. But we were in the room one time. Abu Uwais was there, rahimahullah ta'ala. Sheikh Dawood was there. It was very embarrassing for Sheikh Dawood, right? And then many of the brothers who are callers, many of whom are still active until this day, calling people to Islam, who are known to be upon the Sunnah, right? They were there in the room. And somehow the question came up, what was the first time you heard about Salafiyya? So one by one, everyone started going around and mentioning the first time they heard about Salafiyya. And everyone in the room except Abu Uwais, rahimahullah ta'ala, they had mentioned that the first time they heard about Salafiyya was from a lecture of Sheikh Dawood. Different lectures, one person said, oh, it was this lecture I heard. The other one said it was this lecture I heard, so on and so forth. But everyone in the room mentioned Sheikh Dawood as the first time they even heard and come to know what is a Salafiyya. Like I said, except for Sheikh Abu Uwais, rahimahullah ta'ala. So them omitting him is for a great injustice, but it's for a reason. And this is because the likes of many of these individuals, they have their agenda, and Sheikh Dawood doesn't fit into their agenda. So he has to be omitted and act as if they don't know him. Wa'iyadu billah.
Yeah, well, the reality is, brothers who are sincere and honest, and brothers who Allah has freed from having disingenuous tendencies, will basically give credit where credit is due. And without a doubt, Sheikh Dawood is from our elders in age and in experience as it relates to dawah. So those who don't have this type of disingenuous nature will give credit where credit is due. And there's a lot of credit that's due to Sheikh Dawood Adib. And so I ask Allah Ta'ala to reward him tremendously for the work that he has done in the service of Allah's deen. Now, you brought up another a very important elder, and that being our brother Abu Uwais, Sheikh Abu Uwais, rahimahullah. Now, if you can, please clarify for the audience the impact and status of Abu Uwais as relates to dawah within New Jersey specifically and throughout the West in general.
Sheikh Abu Uwais, out of all of our elders, Sheikh Dawud, first and foremost, had the greatest impact upon me. And I mean our elders from the Du'ats here, in the States. Sheikh Dawud had the greatest impact upon me, as he was like a mentor and like a father figure. And, I myself, I'm in my early 40s, about to be closer to mid 40s. And Sheikh Dawood, he is actually older than my parents, right? So when I say that Sheikh Dawood is like a father figure, very, very much
Literally.
so, literally. And he was a mentor to me coming up. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed us in Old Bridge, New Jersey, when I was living at the time in central New Jersey. We had an Islamic club inside of the school. And this afforded us the opportunity to pray Jumu'ah while we were in school without having to leave. We actually had our Jumu'ah there in school. There were things as like standing for the pledge and so on and so forth that, walillah alhamd, we were able to establish that we didn't want to stand for the pledge, and we got permission to not stand for the pledge. Sheikh Dawood was very instrumental in those things. I would call him, and again, I was a 10th grader, right? By this point, more closer to 11th grade, and then he would give me that time, and he would give me advice on what to do, what to say. I remember speaking with the superintendent of the school system, and I went in there and pretty much read off what Sheikh Dawood had told me, how I should approach it, what I should say, what had just happened in Congress, and so on and so forth, that we shouldn't have to be forced to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance if this is contrary to our creed, to our belief. And alhamdulillah, we were able to get out of doing that. Now, and the compromise that they came up with is they said if your parents will sign off and agree to that, they allow this, then we will allow you to come to homeroom late so that you wouldn't enrage someone else who was patriotic and so on and so forth. So they won't see you not standing. You just wouldn't be there during that time. So you can come late. And alhamdulillah, this is what the Muslims, we had done. And also, as far as helping me apply to Medina, in which I finally, I got accepted in 1995. Sheikh Dawood helped me with that. When he told me that they were going to be in town and come and so on and so forth. So the effect on me personally was tremendous. And likewise, Abu Uwais, rahimahullah ta'ala, although I didn't spend as much time with him as Sheikh Dawood, Sheikh Abu Uwais, rahmatullah alayhi, his influence and impact on me was tremendous, to the point where he was the individual who encouraged me to even start to teach and to try to help as best I can upon coming back from Egypt. After spending 6 years in Egypt, in 2004, when I came back, I wasn't doing anything, because in my mind, I was going to, do this and do that and then leave, right? And I didn't feel there was a need for me to be involved in da'wah. I didn't feel there was a need for me to teach anything. You had brothers around, they were teaching, so on and so forth. So I figured there's no need for me to say anything. So I remember after Jumu'ah, every Jumu'ah, I would go to Masjid Rahman and pray Jumu'ah there. And then I would go sit with Abu Uwais in the office, and we would talk and, things of this nature. And Abu Uwais, he had asked me one time, he said, what are you doing currently right now? Remember that was 2004. So I told him, and I can't sugarcoat it in the way in which I said it, but being a lot younger than right now, I leaned to him and I said, nothing, just like that. And he said, and he got on me. He didn't like that. He got really mad and he put me in my place. And he said, you've been around for too long in the Dawah scene, which is another story we can get into. Because at that point, even though I had been gone studying and so on and so forth, there were times when my name came up in the circles of Dawah and the like. And I would help out here and there in the late 90s with Masjid al-Bayan and the like. So anyway, he said, you've been around too long in Dawah to have this approach. What do you mean, nothing? What are you talking about? This is not right. You're being selfish, yada, yada, fear Allah. And he read me the riot act, you know, and subhanallah, you know, this is one of the beauties of Sheikh Abu Uwais is that he would, when things came up, he would address them. He wouldn't let them go. He would address them. If brothers had issues with one another, he would bring them together and force the conversation, force that awkward conversation. You got something to say about him? Just say what you got to say. You got points against him? Say the points you got against him. And then they give the brother the chance. These are the points he got. Give a response. What do you say to these points in which he's presenting? So on and so forth. And then, okay, how to be rectified? How do we bring islah? That was the yani Sheikh Abu Uwais, is that he didn't play them type of games. He was a man, and he will approach things head on with wisdom and directly. And if you had to have that awkward conversation, you had to have that awkward conversation, right? Because it was for the good of educating the Muslims, so on and so forth. And again, stories upon stories upon stories I can get into with you. But one of the clear examples of this was the islah he brought between me and my beloved brother Abu Yusuf Khalifa. Because Abu Yusuf Khalifa, we both studied in Egypt, and that's in fact where we met, right? And there was a time where we didn't see eye to eye. We didn't see eye to eye over some particular individual, some particular mashayikh that had gone astray, and we didn't see eye to eye. So we were at each other's throats, right? We weren't getting along at that time. So Abu Uwais, I remember one time he called me. He said, "Listen, I need you to come to Masjid Rahma." I said, "Okay, no problem." He said, "No, I need you to come to Masjid Rahma. We're gonna have a meeting." I said, "Have a meeting with who?" He said, "A meeting with Abu Yusuf Khalifa, Abu Zainab Tawfiq. He's going to be there, right?" He mentioned some other brothers, and they're going to be there, and I need you there. I said, "No, man, you got Abu Zainab Tawfiq there, you're there, so on and so forth. Man, y'all don't need me there. What I gotta be there for?" And he said, "Because you're the main one complaining about him. That's why." So, and alhamdulillah. So I said, "No problem." So I went. And there, alhamdulillah, he said, "Look, Siddiq, what you got?" So I said, "What I got." He said, "Abu Yusuf, what's your answer?" Abu Yusuf gave his answer. Me and Abu Yusuf going back and forth. Nah, he playing games. Nah, the joker, blah, 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 going back and forth, right? So, alhamdulillah, Abu Uwais, like a father watching his two children argue. He let us go back and forth, go back and forth. Then he interjected. He said, "Okay, you said what you had to say. You said what you had to say. Listen, here's the bottom line. What's your position now?" Abu Yusuf Khalifa, he said, I'm not with that person no more. We left that a minute ago, right? So alhamdulillah, he said, and then again, you know, me being young and fiery, I said, "Man, he playing games, you know, it's like this." I always said, "Oh, slow down. If he said he left it, that's it, that's that. It's over, right?" Now we give him time and we watch and see if he's truthful or he's not. Alhamdulillah, brother, I've never known him to lie, never known him to play games. Alhamdulillah, exactly the way he said, exactly how it was. He spoke the truth. He stood upon the truth. He stood up for the truth when it became clear to him. And everything he said he was going to do, he did. And everything he said he done, he had did it. Alhamdulillah. And that incident brought us together. Yani, subhanallah, to now, you know, he's from the closest of people to me. But this was the impact that Abu Uwais had. A lot of the nonsense that we see going on right now amongst people didn't fly during his time. Didn't fly during his time because he would make men be men, and you know, he would handle issues directly and bring parties involved who had something to say, or bring them together and make them say it. So his impact was tremendous. And Abu Uwais, rahimahullah ta'ala, he was really one of the first people, you know, him and Sheikh Dawud, to actually start teaching minhaj. Whereas when Abu Muslimah was around, and likewise Abu Sama Dhahabi at the time, you hear, aspects of Aqidah being taught and, things of this nature. But as far as the wuduh of the minhaj and it being explained and so on and so forth, it was really Abu Uwais that was pushing that home. And it was needed because of the individuals who were migrating away from Abu Muslimah at the time. Many of them, and even still to this day, it reigns true, is that they left the man, but not the methodology. They left the man, but not the methodology. So Abu Uwais, rahimahullah ta'ala, he would try to teach them and educate them. And even during this time, it was a struggle. Like the time when Abu Sama came to the masjid and he gave his talk, and then Abu Uwais gave the famous talk in which became very famous, that if speech is silver, then silence is golden, right? Where he did a refutation on Abu Sama, Allah Yadina wa Iyya. Ala kulli hal, this was an illustration to show that even still at that point, people had left the man, but not the methodology as relates to Abu Muslimah, as relates to Abu Muslimah. So his impact was tremendous. His impact, it was tremendous. And it's a shame to see individuals try to use his legacy to gain credibility for themselves, when in actuality, they are not upon what he was upon. Abu Uwais, rahimahullah ta'ala, he did not teach the people to blind follow anyone. He did not teach the people to blind follow the ulama. He did not teach the people that the statements of the ulama was proof and evidence. He did not teach the people to throw away their intellects and an application of the principles of the religion and just go, because so-and-so said, and the like. This is not what was taught by Abu Uwais, it's not what was taught by Sheikh Dawud, so on and so forth. Now, Abu Uwais, rahmatullah alayhi, he's no longer with us. Now, Sheikh Dawud is still with us. And this is, I think, also hints to the fact and leads into the issue on why Sheikh Dawud has to be rendered irrelevant. He has to be gotten away with. Why? Because what he teaches, it undermines their evil agenda.
Yeah, long Mustan. What you just said, there's a lot to unpack in that speech you just said. Right?
What was that now?
I mean, you just touched on a lot of different things. Now, one of the things that I caught that I wanted to just get some clarity on before I go to some other things within that speech. One, I noticed you made mention that you were given dawah in the late '90s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
You made mention giving dawah at Masjid Al Bayan. So I'm assuming this is prior to you going overseas to seek knowledge. Am I correct or incorrect in that assumption?
Yes and no. It's prior to me going back. I went to Medina in 1995 when I was accepted to the University of Medina. I stayed there for a very short period of time. Came back. Being young, hasty, not tying my camel, as they say, and not putting things in order, I had to come back. So I came back, but I never gave up wanting to study. So basically, I tried to return to Medina unsuccessfully. But in my mind, I said, listen, the world is big. If I can't go back to Medina, I'm going to go somewhere else. And prior to that, when I was actually a senior in high school, going to my senior year, one beloved brother to me, Muawiyah, Abu Hafsa. And again, each my story and how I became Muslim, what I was involved in from organized sports to the music industry, so on and so forth, is a story all within itself. But Abu Hafs, Muawiyah, he was one of the people who called me to Islam. He was one of the individuals who I known before I was a Muslim in Jahiliyyah, and he called me, invited me to Islam. And I would go over his house in Long Branch, New Jersey, and he had a study circle, right? And they gave me dawah, alhamdulillah. Long story short, in the beginning of my senior year, going into my senior year, this is prior to me being accepted to Medina, they had went to Egypt. They had went to Egypt to Mithabish in Mahafad al-Munufiyah, if I'm not mistaken. And they started to learn Arabic there. So brothers were going there. The other brothers, they were going from my community. They were going to Abu Nur in Syria, the Sufi school. I didn't know it was Sufi at that time, but they were going there. So my point is that already by that time, before I even got accepted to Medina, I knew that there were other places in the world you can go to study. So when I came back from Medina and yani, I haven't anywhere else to go. I couldn't go back to Medina, meaning, alhamdulillah, Abu Hafs, he was still there. He said, listen, come to Egypt. So I said, okay, alhamdulillah. So I came to Egypt. And there was some, a beautiful brother, Sheikh Abdul Muhammad al-Amaliki from Newark, New Jersey area. It was an ex-cop. He had made hijrah there. So he laid it out for me. He helped me out so much tremendously, to the point where by the time I got off of the airplane, he said, listen, I got like 3 apartments for you to look at. And if you don't like any of those, then I have a home that you can live in. Excuse me. They went to Hurain, not Midhabish. They went to Hurain, which was in Monofia, Muhammad al-Monofia, and Abdul Muhammad, he lived in Midhabish, on the outskirts of Pampa. So alhamdulillah, he took me there, and alhamdulillah, I benefited tremendously during that stay. And that was basically from 96 to 98, I was in Egypt. Mm-hmm. Then I came back in 98. When I came back in 98, I started to try to help. At the time, we had something called Wasila to Salafiyya, right, where we were basically trying to connect and bring telelinks with some of the mashayikh, to America. So I went back to Asbury Park, because Asbury Park was a place that I lived in shortly during my childhood. And it was a place where the masjid there, the Islamic Center of Asbury Park, is where I became Muslim. That's why I took my shahada. Now, so in coming back, I always frequented that masjid. And it was very special to me. Now, the administration of that masjid were people who had known me since I was a youth. They known me since I was in the 10th grade, right? So it had reached a point where their resources were being stretched. They didn't really have the manpower. They had a school and they had the masjid. And their focus was on the school, because that's where their expertise lied, and the masjid was being neglected. So they allowed me to help to organize, even just the prayer times, set the times for the iqamah and so on and so forth. And they allowed me to do the telelinks from there. And during that time, this is like 98, alhamdulillah, we had telelinks with Sheikh Rabi', we had telelinks with Sheikh Ubaid. We also had a telelink with Sheikh Muqbil, rahimahullah ta'ala. It was a very, mashallah, it was a very beautiful time. And this was at the time where Abu Usama al-Dhahabi, he was still with us, right? People act like, I don't know what their brain is, but he was still with us. That's the reality. This was when he was living in Florida, right before he moved to Philadelphia to become the Imam of Sunan Nabawiyyah. Now, he translated for Sheikh Muqbil, rahimahullah ta'ala. At that time, Abu Muslimah, he came there, which is a whole nother story we can get into. But Abu Muslimah, he came there because he was worried to see if Sheikh Muqbil was going to say something about him, right? So him and his goons, they came there, okay? And Abu Salama, he translated, right? So again, at this time, this is, I said late 90s, like 99. I was helping out at that masjid to the point where they pretty much gave me the masjid, right? To the point
this is the Asbury Park masjid, correct?
Asbury Park masjid. At this time, it was still the Islamic Center of Asbury Park. So when my elders at the time who were running the masjid, and they said, listen, well, if you can run it, we'll give it to you. And I said, what you mean? They said, we'll give it to you. We'll sign it over to you. I said, man, stop playing. They said, yeah, we'll go to the bank and we'll sign it. We'll sign everything over, and you make a board and y'all run it, and that's it. So I said, really? Okay, let's see. And they did exactly what they said they were going to do. They signed it over to me and gave it to me. So again, still kind of being, it was like a surreal moment, So I said, I don't know if this is real. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change the name. If I got authority, I'm changing the name, because I don't know what the Islamic Center of Asbury, Park whatever they was, in before. I don't know. I don't know the full history before I got there. So you know what I want to do? I want to change the name. It's a new day. So they said, okay, what you gonna name it? So he thought for a while. Alhamdulillah, I came up with the name Masjid Al Bayan. Now during this time, we were in negotiations with Sheikh Dawud Adib, right? Because I wanted to bring him as an imam. Because remember, this is like now 99, going towards 2000. So I had already had in my mind, I saved enough money for the past year and a half, almost 2 years working, tax returns coming, you know how it is, right? So I said, I'm about to take this, what I saved up, take that, and I'm going back to Egypt. I'm out. So I needed someone to take over, right? Because I was doing the khutbahs, I was in the khutbah, I was, for the Eid and Jumu'ah, so on and so forth, right? Then we had the telenics. So I was in negotiations to bring Sheikh Dawud there. And I remember at the time when he was there visiting at that time before he came fully, and we were on the floor in the masjid, and we were going over with the people who were going to make the new sign. What's the masjid going to be called? So I said Masjid Al Bayan, right? In my mind, from the standpoint, meaning like wudu, and it's clear, right? And Sheikh Dawood, he said, listen, if we're going to call it Masjid Al Bayan, or we're going to call it Masjid Bayan, then we're going to say it right. So write it Masjidul Bayan and let it be known like that. And the people get used to saying it like that. So I said, okay. And that's how it became Masjidul Bayan. So alhamdulillah, brought Sheikh Dawood. He signed a contract with him to be the imam. He started taking over to be the imam, so on and so forth. And then shortly after, in early 2000, I left. The sheikh was in place, Sheikh Dawood as imam. The administration was there. Everything that I was a part of, I said, listen, here it is yours. Listen, here it is yours. And I'm saying that for a point. And that is because you had liars out there who had this understanding that I was an individual who was obsessed with power, control, and so on and so forth. And the reason being, because those who know. Those who know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about, right? And if I got to spell it out, I'll spell it out, no problem. But the point is that it's like a liar. Liars always think people is lying to them. Thief always thinks someone is trying to steal from them, so on and so forth. So they put their bad behavior and characteristics upon me because they're obsessed with power, money, and control. Then they think I must be obsessed with power, money, and control, and they launch these false accusations at me. But here is an illustration that's furthest thing from the truth, because if I wanted the power, money, and control, then I would have kept Masjid Bayan under my control. I had control of the bank accounts. I had control of the expenses. I had control of the imam and his meaning the contract and to negotiate a contract, or who's the imam, so on and so forth. Now let me make that clear. Dawood was autonomous. He said what he wanted, how he went with it. No one told him nothing. But I'm just saying that I had the control to hire an imam and negotiate terms and so on and so forth. So if I wanted control, then I would have kept it. I wanted to go back to study for what if my aim was control. I didn't care about that. I wanted to study. So everything here, I have it. I'm out, and I left. And I left with the intention of not coming back. I didn't leave with the intention I'm gonna go study and then come back here and this is gonna be my masjid. No, and that's hence why Abu Uwais, when he got on me, hence 4 years later, because that was what was real. I never left with the intention that I'm gonna come back and teach. That wasn't an aspiration of mine.
No. Yeah, Allah Mustan. There. Well, I guess we'll save that for later on in the dialogue. There were more things that were mentioned that I want to unpack, and so one of the things that you mentioned was Abu Muslimah. Now, when I started practicing Salafiyya in the early 2000s, around, because I believe I hit a Mashid movement with Farid Abdullah was the Imam at, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was in 2001. Now, Abu Muslimah had a reputation in LA that was fairly good at that time. But later on, things started to become clear to the brothers in LA especially I remember we had a visit from a group of brothers from Philadelphia, and they were informing us about a lot of things that were taking place at that time that Abu Muslim was involved in, and actually jaw dropping things that he was doing, meaning things that no Muslim should be a part of. Now, one of the things that the question that I want to lead into, it has its premise because now when people talk about Abu Muslimah today, it's as if they watered down what really took place. Like I heard one person say something to the effect of, and yeah, there were some things that Abu Muslimah did that people may not have necessarily agreed with, but, and then they go into their spin about how, he was such a great this and such a great that. Or in some cases, people paint the picture that Abu Muslimah was oppressed, that the warnings that came against him and the brothers and sisters that abandoned his community, that was based off the directions of an Arab who people were allowing to control their community and their minds and their intellect, and there was no real reason to abandon Abu Muslimah and thus forth and so on. Now, I know you spent some time in his community as well, if I'm not mistaken, correct or incorrect?
Short period of time. It was some time. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you can give us an understanding as a person who was actually there in the community of what was taking place and what were the issues, or you don't have to go into every single
Right.
issue because I know that there were many incidents that took place
Right.
when I was overseas, and when I first went overseas in the early 2000s. you know I was being informed about a lot of different stuff that were taking place from brothers in Jersey and Philly.
Right.
That for people who are young in their 20s or 30s who weren't around, for them to describe Abu Muslim the way that they're describing them with today is just unfounded. So maybe you can touch on some of the things that were taking place and the very reasons why Abu Muslim was criticized and ultimately abandoned.
Now, Abu Muslimah. See, I remember I was there before Abu Muslimah even finished Medina, right? Now, again, like I said, I'm in my early, closer to mid 40s, so I'm not an old head in that sense, but I'm a lot older than a lot of these people who are now trying to talk about Abu Muslimah and what was done, and and trying to weigh in and play Monday morning quarterback and that. Um, he was criticized for good reason. Now, he was criticized for good reason. Abu Muslimah, when he came back into the States and he orchestrated taking over the masjid from Sheikh Dawud, he had a plan. He had a plan, right? Now, again, Abu Muslimah, at that time, I was a young boy. I didn't know, you know. In fact, to the point where Abu Muslimah he was like my old head in a sense that I looked up to him. Um, he took me, I would say, he took an interest in me. I'm not gonna say he took me under his wing per se, but he took an interest in me. So I would be around him a lot. He was one of the individuals who wrote my recommendation letter for the University of Medina. Abu Sama being the other one that I had asked. He had agreed to write it, but by the time he got around to being able to do it, I already had the interview when it was done already, right? So Abu Muslimah's letter was the one that that I used, so on and so forth. So when I say, you know, I I knew him at that time. I knew him at that time, right? And there were a lot of things that were fundamental issues. It wasn't like, oh, he had a mistake, okay, and no, there was some fundamental issues that he had. There was some aqidah issues that he was striking. He was doing. One of his famous first tapes and lectures, it was jihad, dawah of the first Muslims. Now, when I mean this tape in today's terms, you would have said it went viral. Went viral. They actually had a T-shirt printed up that said Jihad, Dawah, the first Muslims. Now, so they had merch attached to it and everything. And people can say, anybody out there, challenge me if you want to. I had that T-shirt and I used to wear it to school. Okay. And because I remember one of my teachers stopped me and they said, okay, you know, I know what jihad means and I know Muslims. What does dawah mean? What does this word? They ain't say it right, of course. They were dawah, you know, however they pronounced it. What this word mean? And I remember being shy to say it because I'm like, man, if I say this, that's like, you know, that's a bad look. You know what I mean? So Allah musta'an, but that's how famous that shirt had went, right? Now, again, I'm young, I don't know, you know, and by the time I got to Medina, and when I got to Medina, this was the year that Sheikh Abu Muhammad Abdul Rauf al-Shakir, he graduated, right, from the Kulliyat al-Hadith. And I spent some time with him when I was there. And I remember, long story short, listening to one of the mashayikh, if my memory serves me correctly, it was Sheikh Muhammad bin Hadi. This is in 1995, telling us that this is not correct. Jihad was not the da'wah of the first Muslims, but rather the da'wah of the first Muslims was tawheed. And Abu Uwais, rahimahullah ta'ala, he has sent over correspondence complaining about Abu Muslim about this very point, is that he's teaching the Muslims here that jihad was the da'wah of the first Muslims. And you have individuals who were in, you know, came up in the streets, projects, you know what I'm saying, individuals straight out of jail, so on and so forth. And he's bringing this militant type of da'wah that, of course, appealed to people that were already rough around the edges. Of course, it already appealed to individuals who they saw being rough and being tough as being virtuous. So we soaked it up like a sponge does water, right? And it was at that time in 95 that it first started to be clear to me that something's not 100% correct, because all these mashayikh, they're saying this. Now, mind you, now, I didn't understand Arabic at that time. So all I know is a sheikh was going off, right? Now, being from the streets, I know body language. Being a human being, I know body language, and I know Abu Muslim. So I kept hearing Abu Muslim. And the look I saw in the face, it was angry. And the manner, the words were coming forth. And it seemed like it was something that was good. So I asked, what's going on? What's going on? They didn't want to tell me. We was over by Masjid Qiblatain, right? Waiting, trying to get a cab, got the cab, went all the way back to the haram. And I'm asking the whole time, what happened? Tell me what happened. And then finally someone, I forget who, but someone, they told me what was going on. And I said, whoa, subhanAllah, that's deep. Oh, I didn't know that. Wow, okay. That was one of the first indications, right? This is, again, 1995. He didn't get warned against until I was in Egypt, actually, when he got warned against. And this was 1998. This was in 1998, some months before I returned back to the States. This is when the warning came. So now you got 3 years of observations of stuff is not quite right. Him being advised, right? And even, you know what? Even before that, he was being advised on things, because when the whole issue of Masjid Darar came, but he was talking about the 4th Avenue Masjid, I remember that Sheikh Salim Hilali, Allah Hadina wa Iyah, he had came, and and Muhammad Jabali, Allah Hadina wa Iyah, he was translating, and Sheikh Abu Uwais was there, rahimahullah ta'ala, if I remember correctly. And Sheikh Salim went off on the issue, and it was set because Sheikh Albani had asked him to come here to deal with that issue, to deal with the issue of Abu Muslimah. So if it was something that was just, oh, it was really nothing, he made some mistakes and tried to throw it under the rug. No. Then why did Sheikh Al-Albani, Imam Al-Albani advised Sheikh Salim to come, Allah to talk about this issue? And I remember, and this was in Philadelphia, Masjid al-Aqsa, if I remember correctly. I remember after it was done, and after it was the translation and how you can't call it that, and how this is not correct, and you can't apply these rules, and so on and so forth. I remember being outside with Abu Muslimah and asking him, hey, what you gonna do now? Right? And he said to me, he said, look, I'm from America. The Sheikh ain't from America. Talking about now, not Salim, because Salim was just brought there as to give a message. But he was referring to Sheikh Albani. He said, I'm from America. The Sheikh ain't from America. He don't know how it is over here like that. So I respect what the Sheikh is saying, but I ain't changing my position. He says something in terms of these, this meaning, right? Again, I'm a young man. So I said, okay. What am I supposed to say? I said, okay. And kept it like that. So now, 95, I'm in Medina. I'm hearing the Mashaykh say this. So now I'm referring back to that, now to this. I said, okay, stuff is not 100% with him, right? But again, he was being advised. He was being advised by that. And I saw and I witnessed that. There was also an individuals who he was taking from. Now, again, I had was trying to get back into Medina, right? This is after I came back. At this 98, after I came back, after he was warned against by Sheikh Rabi', there were some people from the University of Medina that had come to do interviews. And he hosted them in Masjid Ahl Sunnah. And during that time, they were advising him, trying to make islah, trying to rectify. Now, Abu Muslimah was so arrogant. He was so arrogant. He could have ended everything by just saying, Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. That's it. But he refused. He refused to concede on anything. And really what got him, for lack of a better term, in trouble with Sheikh Rabi' was that his statement that the Mashaykh in Saudi Arabia, they're not Salafi, and you cannot learn Salafiyah from them, but they're Hanbali from the Hanabila. Now, and this is what was on tape and was recorded and what was translated to Sheikh Rabi', even after Abu Muslimah claimed and said, no, I didn't say that. He lied. He said, I didn't say it. And the brother that had brought the issue, they said, listen, you got proof? He said, yeah, the tape is right here. So they played the tape. Somebody translated. It was clear what was transcribed. What he said. Okay. So all he had to say at that point, stuff full out to me later. That was a mistake. I ain't mean it like that. That was an error, whatever, or I meant it and I was wrong. And it had been done. Sheikh Rabi' kept giving him chances. But even after that, and even after Sheikh Rabi', he said what he said. And Abu Muslimah, he came back. By this time now, a few months later, I'm back. They're there. And they're telling him, listen, all this can be done. He wrote a letter to Sheikh Rabi', quote unquote, making islah. One of the issues that were ongoing at that time is that he was bringing over Muhammad bin Abdul Maqsood, who was a takfiri, khariji, takfiri, well known in Egypt to be takfiri. He used to make takfir and Husni Mubarak, so on and so forth. Abu Muslimah would bring him and introduce him to the people in the States, and it was being said about Muhammad bin Abdul Maqsood at the time, he is more knowledgeable than Sheikh Albani, so on and so forth. A'udhu billah. Complete lie. Ala kulli hal. He was introducing the likes of these individuals to the people. Now that mixed with the fact him saying jihad da'wah the first Muslims, the militant approach he was taking, so on and so forth, it was leaning very heavily towards that takfiri stuff. Now you're introducing us to the likes of Muhammad Abdul Maqsood. You had others, Majdi Warada, and so on and so forth, coming off this time, and the like. So all of this is pointing to a narrative. So one of the things that those representatives from Medina that were conducting the interviews at that time, what they were telling him is, you have to stop inviting these people here. You have to stop inviting these people to come over here and to do this and to do that. Okay. Abu Muslimah, he said he was going to. He wrote this letter. He sent it back with them. And matter of fact, we faxed a copy over to. Long story short, they left. Maybe the next Friday or the Friday after that, he gets up and he does his famous khutbah where he talks about they're men and we men. Ain't nobody going to bully us out of our opinion, and so on and so forth. Now, I completely went back on what he said, and then not long after that, if not that same weekend, Muhammad Abdul Maqsood was back there giving lectures in his masjid, right? So all of this pointed to a narrative, and really that was at the final straw. And again, this was like 98, well into 98, I should say. This is like well into 98 that this is this was happening. And so at this point, then it was said, okay, now we will abandon him. Because prior to that, even Sheikh Rabi', prior to that, even after Sheikh Rabi' warned against him, and he came back, even after he threatened to beat up Sheikh Rabi', said, we'll put some hickeys on the Sheikh head and they ain't gonna do nothing to us because we Americans, but lock us up for a little bit and let us go. Even after all this, Sheikh Rabi', he kept telling us, be patient, give him time. Give him time. It's not, give him time. Give him time. Be patient. He still kept telling us, be patient. But it was after he broke his word for the, I don't know, I lost count of how many times he would break his word. After he broke his word and he invited Muhammad Abdul Maqsood back there, after that, that's when they said, okay, khalas, that's it. This guy's playing games. It's done. That's it. Everybody started abandoning him. He can't be trusted. You can't trust him to learn religion from him. Everybody start leaving him. And the statement that Sheikh Rabi' made against him, yani anta hizbin al-mustatir, it start seeming like, that seemed like it's more like what it is, that he was a hidden hizbi, right? So it was really at that point that people started leaving him. So again, this is 3 going on or 4 years, and closer to 4 years that he was being advised clear mistakes in minhaj, clear mistakes in aqidah, and that. So now for people to come and make it seem like he was wronged, he was done unjustly, and that, no, this is not a case of a bad prosecutor, crooked prosecutor getting caught, and then now all of the other prior convictions now become in question. This is not a case like that. It's not a case like that. Why? And I want to say this. This is not a case like that because these individuals who say this, they say this as if it was Abu Khadija from Salafi publications, as if it was Hassan Somali, now I'm from Germantown Masjid, the crony of these guys. They make it seem like they were the ones who were instrumental in bringing down Abu Muslimah. When the reality of it is, they didn't have nothing to do with it like that. On the proxy, okay, maybe they added their 2 cents from across the pond, okay, whatever. But they were not instrumental in having an adverse effect upon him, Abu Muslimah, and his dawah. But in fact, it was the 4 people that he mentioned in 2 tapes. Now, the 4 people. He made 1 tape that was called, and the khutbah, and it was called The Spreaders of Great Fitna. It was called The Spreaders of Great Fitna. Now, I must say this, is that a lot of what I'm speaking about right now, I've never spoken about publicly before. As this is the first interview I ever did before. I don't really talk about myself and things like this because no one cares. Who cares, right? So I don't get into that type of stuff. But so a lot of what I'm saying is the first time you're going to ever hear from me, or maybe even ever publicly like this, is that he made this tape, The Spreaders of Great Fitna, right? And in that tape, he mentioned who are the spreaders of great fitna. And he mentioned in that tape Abu Uwais, because Abu Uwais said that Abu Muslimah was like he was running a cult, right? He mentioned Dawud Adib. He mentioned Abu Hassan Malik, right? Excuse me, it wasn't 4, it was 5 people, right? 5 people, not 4, 5 people. I stand corrected, 5 people. He mentioned Abu Hassan Malik Al-Akhdar. He mentioned Abdurrahman Hernando. And he mentioned Siddiq from Old Bridge, me, okay? A lot of people don't know, but his goons, they were so oppressive. They were so militant. They were so still stuck on some street stuff that the swords of the Sunnah, as they were called, right? They threatened me with bodily harm. Abu Muslimah himself threatened me with bodily harm. He told me, Siddiq, if you don't shut up, we're going to shut you up, right? And this was in a really heated conversation where he assaulted me physically, right? But I gave him that one. I told him, do what you got to do. I get it from a Yom Qiyamah, right? But alhamdulillah, it was no real harm done, but he tried, right? In that incident, he told me, Siddiq, if you don't shut up, we're going to shut you up, right? And I told him I ain't shutting up. I'm going to say, I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and you're not going to bully me out of my position, using his line against him, right? And no, you're not gonna, you're not gonna shut me up. So he did this talk. The spread is a great fitna. Now it got so heated, it got so dangerous and volatile at that time that I would be in certain places in Newark even, and be talking with a brother, and he say, "What's your name?" And I said, "Siddiq." He said, "Oh yeah, man, where you stay?" Old Bridge. Ah, you're Siddiq from Old Bridge, right? So subhanAllah, okay. That happened a few times. I said, all right, let me, I gotta watch my back. This is a little strange now. Okay. So he did another tape after that called The Enemies of Islam. And he mentioned 5 individuals: Abu Uwais, Dawud Adib, Abu Hassan Malik, Abdurrahman Hernando, and Siddiq from Old Bridge, right? So it got so bad at that point that a close friend of mine who was down with those guys, he came to me, said, "Look, man, just stop talking about him." I said, "Man, I really ain't saying much about him. I ain't changed my position, but I'm not running around here talking about him all the time like this," right? He said, "Listen, man, just tell them what they want to hear." I said, "I ain't telling them what they want to hear." He said, "Brother, please." And me and his brother, we grew up together. I known him from from Jahiliyyah, right? I known him since I was in middle school. He said, "Brother, I'm telling you, please." He said, because he said the squad they got, everybody at least got a steel whip, and there's always a gunner with them. He said, just tell them what they want to hear. They only sent me down here because they Allah put mercy in their heart for you, because you their young head. You grew up with them kind of. So they sent me as like the last resort. So I told him, I said, I'm not gonna change, man. My statement is my statement. He need to rectify himself, make tawbah, and clear up what he's doing and stop misleading the people. And that's it. That's my statement. And he told me straight up. He said, I love you, man, and I'm going to not tell them that. I ain't going to tell them that. Straight up. So, and listen, I was living in Old Bridge at the time, right? And this is just to give you some kind of understanding. I was living in Old Bridge at the time. This is like the end of '98. This is the end of '98. It got so bad that somebody suggested to me, "Yo, stop telling people your name Siddiq. You should start telling them your name Abu Abdis Salaam." And that's how Abu Abdis Salaam become in use. Because before then, even after Abdis Salaam was born, people still were calling me Siddiq. I didn't go by my kunya. But it wasn't, they said it's too much heat right now. You're not being soft, you're not, they don't mean you weak, anything like that. But you gotta be wise. When the fitna come like this, you break your sword against the rock. You understand? You break your sword against the rock, and so on and so forth. So just come on, man. Just go by Abu. Let's stop telling people your name Siddiq, and to try to get some of this heat off of you in that. So alhamdulillah, I took the advice, but it got so bad. Mind you, now my childhood friend, he knew exactly where to come to find me, in Oak Ridge, right? So the brothers who were in charge of Masjid al-Bayan at the time, who later ended up giving me the masjid, they had, he had a multi-family house, an apartment became available, and he told me, he said, "Listen, brother, there's too much heat for you up there. Why don't you come down here? Your lease about to be up. Why don't you come down here and live here, right? Come down here and live here, right?" So by this time, this is 99, right? This is well into 99 at this point. So when the lease was up, I moved. To Asbury, and that's how I was in Asbury. So I'm saying what to say is that, long story short, is that anyone who says that Abu Muslimah got a bad deal, bad shake, he was oppressed, no way. Abu Muslimah was the oppressor. He was the oppressor. Now, and the Prophet said, he said, "Man lam yarham la yurham." Whoever does not show mercy will not be shown mercy. So he was dealt with in a way that was most appropriate. He was dealt with in a way that was most appropriate, because what he was putting out was way worse than the manner in which he was dealt with. So no, those who say that, I can almost guarantee you they were not there. Many of them were very young, if they were around at the time, and others from amongst them, and Allah knows best, wasn't even Muslim at the time. And they're talking like they're authorities on the issue and they don't know what they're talking about. I hear the likes of Shadeed Muhammad, Allah Hadina wa Iyah, speak about the situation, totally getting it wrong. He wasn't around. He came after the fact. He came after the fact, after a lot of people had left, and he's trying to talk about the story like he'd been there from the beginning. You don't know what he's talking about. You don't find nobody who was around from Lincoln Street on talking like that. You don't. Yeah. Because they know the treachery of Abu Muslimah. And if he has been humbled afterwards, because Allah knows best what he's on right now. I don't follow him. I don't deal with him like this. I don't check on him. Right? Allah Yahdina wa Iyah. May Allah guide us in him. The point is that maybe he's different now. Maybe. I wouldn't doubt it. But at the end of the day, if they see from him any type of humbleness now, then they should know for a surety there was no signs of that then. There was no signs of that then. So if he's been made humble by the predicament, alhamdulillah. But there was no signs of that then. None at all.
No. Well, yeah, it's funny that some I've gotten word, not specifically Shadeed Muhammad, but other brothers are making this claim about Abu Muslimah being oppressed. And I know with certainty that they weren't around. Some of them, by their own admission, weren't even practicing Islam at the time. And I find it strange that they take a position against certain individuals involved in dawah that do have ghulu with them, and it's without a doubt that they have ghulu with them. But then they come and in defense of someone like Abu Muslimah, because the type of things that were reaching me and brothers in LA were some of the most craziest things that you could hear. Like, for instance, we heard about an infamous masjid takeover, that he went into a masjid with a group of brothers, physically took it over, and then got on a minbar and said, "None of you brothers in here will bust a grape." Like he's on some gangster stuff with the Muslims that you're supposed to have love for, and thus forth and so on. I met brothers when I was overseas that said they were a part of Abu Muslim's community. And one brother, he stated that his brother was a part of a crew that would literally physically rough brothers up, specifically brothers who, like they talked about brothers who were found to have beat their wives. And the way that Abu Muslimah would remedy this problem was by sending a bunch of goons to this person's house, or taking them to I guess it was a room within the masjid, taking them to a basement or something, and these guys would rough the person up. I was told by another brother out of LA who said he heard it directly from Abu Muslimah. I guess Abu Muslimah had beef, and picture that he had beef with Jamil Al-Amin, or had some type of problems with Jamil Al-Amin. And Jamil Al-Amin had, what was it, the Muslim Olympics or Islamic Olympics? I'm not sure what he called it.
Something like
some
that,
type of sporting event that he had in, I guess, down in Georgia. And he made it clear that Abu Muslimah couldn't come. And so Abu Muslimah says, "Oh yeah," and he rides down there with bus loads full of people. And per this brother from LA, he stated that Abu Muslimah said that for every guard that Jamil Al-Amin had, he put two men on each of his guards. And he made sure that he prayed next to Jamil Al-Amin, and he had his pistol on him. And every time he made ruku, he leaned his hip over into Jamil Al-Amin, so Jamil Al-Amin would know that he was strapped. So, these are the type of things that we were hearing in LA in like 2001, 2002, and like this. So first, because before I continue, because you were out of that community, were these the type of things that were taking place? One. And then two, if so, I just really find it very far-fetched that people could have a problem with brothers involved in dawah that they accuse of having harshness and ghulu, which those criticisms are rightly placed upon this certain group of individuals that criticize people based off non-issues, that fall into sensationalism, that call to taqlid, that Germantown crowd, and the people that surround themselves around them. I can understand how they do have issue with them, with those individuals. But how can you have issues with those individuals for the ghulu and the harshness that they have with them, and totally exonerate Abu Muslimah, who fell into things that, if these type of things that I mentioned are true, were way worse in terms of harshness? So could you, can you verify that those were, even if it's not necessarily those particular issues, but the things of this nature was taking place? Are you?
Yeah, and undoubtedly, those type of things were taking place. The fact that they have the match in Philadelphia now is a result of that physical takeover, right?
Which match did?
Germantown.
Uh,
Germantown. That's how it's not in the hands and control of Abu Muslim anymore, was because of that takeover where he came in, he did what he did. And it remained like that. It remained in their hands. And that situation was very troubling. Like I said, he would bring in individuals who were, still one foot in the street, and they would move against Muslims like they were still in the street, and with the justification that they're pushing it down, so on and so forth. And the similarities between Abu Muslimah and between those individuals who are now being criticized from the likes of Spubs, Germantown, so on and so forth, because of harshness and to the end of it, you'll find that's all from Abu Muslimah's playbook. They have those similarities in common, right? Now, I won't say to the extent that, they out there fighting people, as Abu Muslimah, he fought me, he hit me, right? Very militantly. And that had a backstory. He was mad. His feelings was hurt because I, in his words, sided with Sheikh Rabi' over him. And he said, but Sadiq, you know me. And I remember responding to him by saying, nah, I know you, and I know the level of knowledge of Sheikh Rabi'. And this issue is not about who knows who. The Sheikh said this is the case as far as your methodology, because of these observations, make tawbah for those things in which he's mentioning. But you just want me to take, our friendship, quote unquote, and then throw all these points away and turn a blind eye to them just because you're my quote unquote friend and I know you and all of these things. No, I can't do that. I'm not doing that. So that he got mad about that. Then he threatened me. And one thing, led to another. They took me outside and that like this. And alhamdulillah, I told him, because at first, I was young, and I'm a person that, came up in the streets for a portion of my life. So when he said, you talking to me like that, I should punch you in the face. That's what he said to me. Right? And he used the N-word. He said, you talking like that, I should punch you in your face. What would you do if I punch you in your face? So of course, the obvious response is, I'll punch you back. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean? That's obvious. So he said, well, get up. Let's go outside. So again, I said, what up? So we got up, we went outside. Alhamdulillah, by that point, Allah Ta'ala guided my heart. It was only by the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's it. It was by the tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala guided my heart. So we got out there, and I leaned over to him in his ear, and I said, listen, man, you know what? Do what you got to do. I'll get it from Yom Qiyamah. I ain't going to do nothing back. Go ahead. Do what you got. Let me see what you got. And he swung on me, hit me once, tried to hit me again. I dodged it, and that was that. I'm bringing that to say this. I used to go paintballing with, some of his security people. I know their tactics. I know, their strategy, so on and so forth. And Allah made me blind to what was going on at that particular time. because I believe and it did. It broke my heart afterwards, right? But a brother who was there, who was also knew how they moved. I remember him coming to me later on, some time after, and he said, "Alhamdulillah, you didn't do nothing to him." He said, "Alhamdulillah, you didn't do nothing to him." Now, Abu Muslimah, he's known where he's from in Jersey. They're not that tough. And you know, where I'm from in Jersey, we known to have certain qualities. And they said, you know, the way it went down, alhamdulillah, you didn't do nothing, although you could have, but it's good you didn't. I said, why you say that? He said, because I was watching the security. He said, and while that was going on, you were flanked. And had you gotten the better of him, he said, I fear they would have shot you. That's what he told me. And I couldn't believe it. I said, really? And it broke my heart. I said, these are people who know me since I was young, younger. I mean, they would have done that to me. And he said, I really believe so, Akhi. The way that they were moving and the way that they were, because they weren't in each other's crossfire. Yeah. He said, that's what I fear, is that had you done something and gotten the better of him, it would have been bad for you. So these things I can say personally, yes, that's what they used to do. They were violent. They were like a gang, right? Abu Uwais, what he said was true. They were like a cult. No. And it's funny now that you have individuals calling, brothers cults, which I don't agree with that label. That label is not correct. But they, they'll use that label against these ones because they have animosity towards them, but then turn around and try to defend Abu Muslimah, who for any on-to purposes had what was like a cult. No. They accused them of harshness, but Abu Muslimah was extremely harsh and rude, and was known to embarrass people, was known to no wisdom. On the minbar. In class too. A brother would stand up and ask a question, and he'll embarrass them in class to the point where it was like an atmosphere of fear. Like you didn't want to say nothing and get blasted in class. And this was the terminology we used back then. Like he'll blast you in front of everyone and embarrass you, right? He was very rude. He was very harsh. He was very arrogant.
And we heard about the khutbah Layth. I mean, he was doing khutbahs on specific individuals.
but listen, but in that khutbah, he said some things that may have led some of those men to go home and physically abuse their wives. Where's the wisdom in this? Where's the wisdom in this? You understand? And subhanallah. And then what's crazy, and also was well known, that if somebody did do something to their wife, then and the sister called this outfit that was attached to the masjid, then the husband was gonna get beat up. They was gonna come there and beat him up. I've had brothers brag to me that was on that squad. Brother beat his wife up, threw her out, and she didn't have any clothes on. So a brother gave him the coat, gave the sister the coat, and then we went into the house. I said, what happened? I said, man, we handled it. I said, what happened? They looked at me and he said, man, we handled it. Because real people don't talk. They're not loose with them lips. So that was clear. I said, subhanallah, what in the world? What in the world? So this stuff is true. Like I said, the mere fact that in early 99 or what have you, once my lease was up in Old Bridge, I had to move from Old Bridge to Asbury Park. That ain't because Abu Muslimah was a nice guy. That's not because the people with him weren't fanatical individuals. No, that was for good reason. So yes, that was true and more, because once I went back overseas in 2000, he still had his reign was still going on for a little bit. So Allah knows best what was going on after that point. Because people were moving there from different areas and things of this nature. Allah musta'an. People need to learn their history and to get it right and to be just when they are criticizing individuals. The same thing they cry about people not being just when dealing with them, they do the same thing to the other side. And this is not good. And me, frankly, I don't agree with any of that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. Now, I noticed you mentioned Masjid al-Bayan. I wanted to ask, what are some of the other masajid that you were directly involved with? Because Masjid al-Bayan, at one point, like when Dawud Adib was a part of the administration, it was one of the more well-known Salafi establishments. And as you mentioned, you were instrumental in bringing it over to the dawah, for lack of better expressions. So, what were the other masajid that you were involved with? Were there any masajid that you started yourself, and thus forth and so on?
Nah, alhamdulillah, I was Masjid al Bayan was one of the masajid that I directly had my hand in helping them. Um, there was a short time, about a year, I was in dorm, Masjid Tawheed was Sunnah, and alhamdulillah, I helped them in their transition from when they were in a storefront masjid that had gotten closed down due to zoning violations. Um, at that time, I was the imam there. At that time, it was shortly after accepting a position there. Um, the masjid was without a place for a little bit, and
Uh,
alhamdulillah,
now, this is the masjid that Rashid Barbie is currently at now, correct?
yes, yes,
And
Masjid
so
Rashid Bar was currently there.
I'm assuming that he wasn't around back then.
No, at this time he had left. He was overseas. He went overseas for about a year, and while he was overseas, and in his stead, I was there as the imam. Um, and they're alhamdulillah, one of the brothers who I known since I was a youngster, Sheikh Abdul Qadir, hafidhahullah ta'ala. He had found these um, two houses, right? Well, he was involved in finding these two houses, and because I was the imam at the time, we negotiated with the lady um, to use these two houses who had the proper zoning, right? It was multi-purposed. That if we can use both of these houses for the masjid, and alhamdulillah, she allowed us to rented it to us. And as far as I know, that they're still there in those two houses to this day. Um,
Yeah. I think I went to I visited. Yeah, it is two houses. Yeah, one
yeah,
right next to the other, right?
one
Yeah.
for the men and one for the women, right? Yeah.
No, no,
So
yeah.
alhamdulillah, I was helpful in that, and some of the brothers who had established Masjid al-Rahma, right? Um, they were also in Egypt with us. One of the brothers one day he told me, he said, subhanallah, um, I pray that Allah writes this from your scale of good, right? I pray that Allah writes this from your scale of good. And I said, why are you saying that? I had nothing to do with Masjid Rahma being established. You guys did that. They say, yeah, but you one of the brothers that was brave enough to talk to us about the issues of Abu Muslimah, and that encouraged us to leave. And that was the catalyst that led to Masjid Rahma. So I pray that Allah Ta'ala write that in your scale of good. Um, and then, over the years, I've helped various places. Yani, um, we had Masjid al Bukhari down in West Palm Beach for about 10 years or so. And in fact, the only reason that the masjid closed um, was that I moved here. And basically there was no one, who could continue it. And I didn't want to leave a situation open that the people of innovation will come in now and utilize as a platform to spread their nonsense. So if there was no one on the Sunnah, no Salafi that I could entrust the masjid and leave it to, um, then I figured, it's just better we close it and just move forward. And that's what happened. We closed it and moved forward, and now I'm here in Orlando. Um, so over the years, I've tried a little bit, to help out in various masajid as best I could.
No. Now, you made mention of your time overseas in Egypt. I may have missed it, but if I'm not mistaken, you studied with Abdul Adin Al Badawi, correct?
No, that is correct.
Right. Now, I watched I watched the brother Mukhlis, who's well known as Abu Toba. I
Mhm.
watched his interview on a podcast called The Young Smirks. And he mentioned some things that I don't believe to be exactly correct in terms of Abdul Adim al Badawi and his markers.
No.
And so he mentioned several things. One, he stated that Bedawi was the top student. Keep in mind, not from amongst the top students, but he said Bedawi was the top student of Sheikh Al Albani. Likewise, he stated, Abu Toba stated about himself that he was the only American who studied the book Al Wajiz with Bedawi directly, which we know Al Wajiz, for the students of knowledge, we know that Al Wajiz was a book of fiqh that Abdul Adim al Bedawi authored. Likewise, he stated that Bedawi was the mu'tamid of Shafi'i fiqh today.
Mm.
And he also stated that if you didn't memorize Quran, you couldn't benefit from any class there except his weekly tafsir class. Now, I'm not trying to go into the motivations of why Abu Toba said what he said, but from me being in Egypt and generally having some awareness of certain affairs, when I heard those four things, I didn't, I don't believe those to be true, and Allah knows best. But because you were someone that was there at the markers of Bedawi, uh, what can you confirm and what can you deny as it relates to these four things that I mentioned?
Well, as far as Abu Tawbah, I remember when he first came to Egypt. Um, as far as the claim that him being the only American or things of this nature, and I myself heard a little bit of that interview, and he made it appear as if he was like the only American that studied it, and this is furthest from the truth. Um, I started studying with Sheikh Abdul Adim al Badawi, Allah Hadina wa Iyah, in the 90s. In the 90s, right? Remember, let's go back to the timeline. I went to Egypt initially in 1996, and I stayed there to 1998. During that time was when we first learned about Abdadim al-Badawi. And I began studying with him when I was living in Tampa, because the Sheikh he lives in the Qurya of Sheen, in the village of Sheen, which is in Markaz Qutur, which is right next to Tampa, and Zaharabiyya. So much so that because it's one of those outside villages, sometimes they even refer to it as Tampa, right? Long story short, so I had started studying with him then, and there were some Americans that moved there, two in particular. One of them was my elder and my very dear friend, Abu Hafs Muawiyah, one of the brothers who called me to Islam and gave dawah to me when I was a Catholic, and who invited me to come to Egypt to study. He had found out the Sheikh was there, and he had moved from Hurain over to Sheen, and I wanted to move, right? But at the time, I had just signed a lease, and the Sheikh he told me, don't break the lease, keep the lease. Sheen is only 20 some odd minutes away from Tampa. Just come back and forth. Just come back and forth, right? So there were brothers who were studying with the Sheikh, myself included, from the 90s. Abu Toba didn't get there to after 9/11. So let's keep that in mind. So there were brothers who were studying with the Sheikh in the 90s. So we studied with the Sheikh for years and known about him for years by that time. And during that time in the 90s, I remember the Sheikh was going over Mukhtasar min Hajj al-Qasidin, and everyone was invited to and could participate, whether you finished the Quran or not. That time the Sheikh, he was of course doing tafsir. That was his staple. But it wasn't as such that you had to finish the Quran in order to be eligible for those classes. That was not the case. That was not the nizam at that time. Now, there's one or two possibilities. Either things have completely changed. Now, mind you, I haven't been there since the early 2000s because I even while still in Egypt, I left Abdadim al Badawi because of deviations in which became overwhelmingly clear to me. Either things completely changed during that time, or Abu Toba don't know what he's talking about, right? Because when after coming back to Egypt in 2000, I didn't have the least problem no more. It was now coming straight back from America. So I moved to Sheen. I lived in Sheen, right? I lived in Sheen. While I was in Sheen, I remember doing Fath al-Majid, Fath al-Majid, Sharh Kitab al-Tawheed, with Sheikh Abdul Badawi. Of course, the tafsir class was ongoing. He had a series of classes he was doing from the works of Muhammad Khalil Haras, who actually, rahimahullah ta'ala al-Alama, who was actually from Sheen. He was actually from Sheen. That was his place of birth. So he was teaching a series of classes from that. He had a series called Na'am al-Salafiyya al-Hizbiyya, yes to Salafiyya, no to partisanship. And the like. There was a lot of classes, that we were doing at that time, and that even if you didn't finish the whole Quran, you could still have access to. With G's, because the Sheikh he wrote for a Bronamage for myself and some of the other Americans, and everyone's Bronamage was slightly different, right? Mm-hmm. But one thing was consistent was with G's, because we were all to memorize with G's. So everyone was learning with G's, because we were called to memorize it, So all of this was going on before anyone had finished memorizing the Quran, So that statement, like I said, that it wasn't like that when I was there. So either he doesn't know what he's talking about, or things just completely changed, since I left. Likewise, the fact of the Sheikh being the Mu'tamid of the Madhhab al-Shafi'iyya, that was not known for Sheikh Abdadim al-Badawi. Although we know the Madhhab is, the most predominant Madhhab in Egypt is the Shafi'i Madhhab, right? Abdadim al-Badawi, this is not what he claimed. He never claimed that. In fact, one of the criticisms that one of my other sheikhs, Sheikh Amr Abdis Salim, Sheikh Amr Abdul Mur'im Salim, Sheikh Amr Abdul Mur'im Salim, one of the criticisms that he had, again, Allah hadina wa iyah, may Allah guide us and him, because he has went astray. But one of the criticisms he used to have for Sheikh Abdadim, he says he never disagreed with Sheikh Albani, only in the issue of niqab. And this is like blameworthy. There's no way you want me to believe that he agrees with him in everything. And Sheikh Albani never claimed for himself that he was Shafi'i, but rather from Ahl Hadith, right? Okay. And this is what Abdadim claimed. And when he looks at Wajiz, he'll find it coincides with the fiqh of Sheikh Albani, outside of the tremendous blunders that comes in Wajiz, like quoting from Sayyid Qutb unnecessarily, right, over and over. But for the most part, the opinions coincide with the opinions of Sheikh Albani, and he's, wasn't known to be Shafi'i. The other thing of Sheikh Abdadim being the most knowledgeable student of Sheikh Albani, that's an exaggeration, or that's a lie, because that was never known nor said about him, that he was the most knowledgeable student of Sheikh Albani. What was said about him was he was one of the most prominent students of Sheikh Albani. He used to give the khutbahs in one of the masajid when he was there in Jordan for about 12 years. He studied with Sheikh Albani. He gave the khutbah, and Sheikh Albani used to come to his masjid and listen to his khutbah there. Also, it was said about him that Sheikh Albani called him al-Mufassir, the scholar of tafsir, because this was his strong point. This was he was specialized in. And that's about it. But as far as the most knowledgeable from Sheikh Albani students, no. This is something that the first time I ever heard that was from Abu Toba, right? And the like. So like I said, either Abu Toba don't know what he's talking about, or he's just embellishing, or things just changed, changed since the last time I was there. Allahu a'lam wa a'lam.
Could you, because one of the things that we just want to keep clear is because when talking about Abdul Azim al-Badawi, uh, his current condition, we know that he's been criticized by scholars. Could you touch on a little bit the reasons for the criticisms? Why the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah caution people from taking from him today?
Now, one thing with Sheikh Abdul Allah Hadina wa Iyad, may Allah guide us and him, is that he is what you would call Qutbi. Now, I'm Qutbi. He's an avid, Sheikh, excuse me, he's an avid Sayyid Qutb enthusiast, right? For to put it, plainly. And this could be seen with his excessive quoting from Sayyid Qutb inside of his books, to the point where it was at times where it was just la yanbaghi. It was no real reason to even quote from Sayyid Qutb in a situation like this. Like the quotes he brings in Al-Wajiz, in Kitab al-Nikah, where he's quoting from Sayyid Qutb from Dilal al-Quran for the explanation of ayat. Why? We have Tafsir al-Kathir, Tafsir al-Tabari, so on and so forth, right? Why in the world would you use Dilal al-Quran? It makes no sense. There is nothing that was said from truth, and if a person wanted to say that there, except that others in the ulama of Ahl Sunnah have mentioned it. So mention Sayyid Qutb for what? And also, he was known, from the minbar to quote from Sayyid Qutb and to mention him in a good way. And you got to remember, well, not remember, but let me add that Sheen was a village that had been greatly influenced by Ikhwan Muslimin. There were a lot of Ikhwanis in that village. So to get on the minbar and to speak about Sayyid Qutb in such glowing and high terms was counterproductive and of a disservice to the people who were living there in the village, So this was quite problematic. So this was one thing that was a red flag, right? And then when he was asked by one of the brothers, they asked him, Sheikh, why do you quote from Sayyid Qutb like this? And the Sheikh's response was, if someone says something that is true, then then we say it. We're not going to hide from the truth despite who says it. And that was the end of his answer. And then he had false principles. One of his false principles that was contrary to Salafiyah was that he said that the Sheikh don't warn against people by name, right? Doesn't warn against people by name. And I remember one time he was asked about this, Sheikh, or not asked, but it was mentioned to him. Sheikh, you don't warn against people by name. And he said, nah, I'm having min Adib Sheikh. He said, yeah, this is from the Sheikh's character, talking about himself in the third person. But this is what he said. And it was very problematic because people don't connect the dots all the time. From wisdom is you put everything in its proper place. And hikmah, whether shaykh and mawdi'i, you put everything in its proper place. So there are times that you can warn against the issue and people will get it. And at those times, there's no need to mention a name, so you don't mention a name. And then there's times you can warn against an issue and people will not get it. So you have to bring a name. And I'll give you an example. There was a time when Sheikh Abdul he did a khutbah against takfir and against the takfiriyin, right? And he did this khutbah, and it was a nice khutbah, warning against the khawarij and stuff like this, and the takfiris and the like. And I remember there was some well-known students of the Sheikh, and they were walking down to the Mahatma, to the bus depot. So they had like a pastry store down there. So he said, we're going to the Mahatma. I said, no problem, I'll walk down there with you. I want to get some pastries, right? Best bolsa and the like. Yeah? So I went, and while we walking down there, I said, hey, where y'all going? Just, you'll mind me asking, where you going? They said, oh, we're going to Kafr Sheikh. I said, oh, you're going to Kafr Sheikh for? Because that's known. That's where Abu Muslimah al-Juyaanee he lives at. I said, what are you going there for? They said, we're going to go see the Sheikh. I said, the Sheikh? What Sheikh you talking about? They said, Abu Muslimah. I said, well, what would you do that for? They said, because the Sheikh, he has class tonight. We want to go see the Sheikh. I said, didn't you just hear the khutbah? They said, what do you mean? I said, didn't you just hear the khutbah about the takfiriyin, about these people who speak ill of the rulers, so on and so forth, right? Now, mind you, this was at a time where Abu Muslimah al-Juyaanee, he was under, I'm not going to say house arrest, but he couldn't leave his area. He couldn't leave Kafr Sheikh, right? By order of the government, because he was too reckless with his tongue. He would speak out against the government publicly, okay? So I'm saying, subhanAllah, how are we going to go talk to, go study with him when he is from the people that Sheikh Abdadim just warned against? He's from those type of people. They didn't connect the dots. But this was one of his problems, is that he would leave it so general that people wouldn't connect the dots. And he deemed it to be from good akhlaq to never say a person's name. And this is not from our methodology. Sometimes, and it's not all the time, but sometimes you have to say a name in order for the point to get across. And that was an issue. Another issue was that I was there with the sheikh, and I was very close. I was very close with the sheikh. And there was a time when I was the only American living in the village. There was a time when I was the only American there living in the village at times for some months. And I would go to the sheikh, and I would go back to his house. We would drink soda and whatever. And the sheikh, he asked me to translate something for him. So I had to go to Tonta to the internet cafe and to retrieve this document. When I went to retrieve the document from the website that he had given me, I found it was the website of Ihya Turaf. I remember calling him back from the internet cafe, and I said, Sheikh, is the web address correct? Is this the website? He said, yes. I said, and your article is there in their publication? He said, yes. I said, okay, no problem. I got it. Of course, I didn't print it out. I didn't bring it back. I didn't translate it. I told the sheikh, listen, man, I couldn't do it. I can't do it. He said, okay, no problem. I didn't offer much of an explanation because I didn't want to lie to him. But the reality was I wasn't doing that. I wasn't going to translate nothing that was from Ihya Turaf website. I wasn't doing that. And that was really the final straw for me, where I said, you know what, I'm out. I ain't living here no more. And in fact, when Abu Toba first came to Tonta, I actually warned him from going out there with Sheikh Abdalim Badawi. I told him don't go out there because there's some issues, minhaj issues, and these are from what these things are, and outlined some things to him. But he didn't listen. He went and did what he wanted to do, and that's fine. That's on him. But in any event, Sheikh Abdalim, yes, he's Qutbi. He has some serious issues in his minhaj, serious issues that warrant that a person observe caution as relates to him, and to avoid being with him. And this is something that me and Sheikh Hassan have had, rahimahullah ta'ala, extensive conversations about, to the point where I told him my experiences there with Sheikh Abdalim al-Badawi and so on and so forth. And he told me, he said, yes, you did exactly what is right. You did good by leaving, and don't go back. You did good. And subhanallah, one time I was eating, just show you how well known it is about Abdalim Badawi, his false methodology. We were eating lunch, if I'm not mistaken, and people were talking, and something was mentioned about someone who he feels that you're not supposed to mention people's name. And I remember Sheikh Hassan, he leaned over and he hit me with his shoulder, and he said, Zay Sheikh. Right? He said, like your sheikh. Right? Zay Sheikh. Right? He said, so we started laughing about that. I was like, hey, because it's well known. This is his methodology. He feels it's not proper to ever mention anyone's name. And this is, of course, going to the opposite extreme and going too far. Abdalim, in bragging of having tazkiyah from Abdalim for anything, that's not something a person upon Salafiyah really brags about.
You mean Abu Toba, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Abu Toba, exactly what I'm talking about. See, that's one of those times you had to mention someone's name to make it clear.
Hey. I kind of figured it was a slip of the tongue. You said Abdalim twice, so you must kind of figured you meant Abu Toba. Now,
no. What I mean is that because Abu Toba brags about having tazkiyah from Abdalim.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You said Abdalim's name twice, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, yeah. Abu Toba, he brags about that. Yeah, it's nothing to brag about.
Now, you made mention of your interactions with Sheikh Hassan ibn Abdul Wahhab al-Banna, rahimahullah. So I know without a doubt that you have a relationship with the Sheikh, especially, an indication of that would be directly after you were falsely warned against by Abu Muhammad al-Maghribi and
Yeah.
Sheikh Hassan in the document that was put out to the people. Sheikh Hassan made mention that that he started to call you, to give you a call, to advise you about what was going on.
Yeah.
Now, in the situation with Abu Muhammad al-Maghribi, he made some very uh, erroneous claims or unsubstantiated claims against you. From them, you're unknown. You're unknown. The ulama don't know you. I believe that was his wording. And you, again, that whole Sheikh Hassan saying he wanted to call you and give you advice clearly disproves that. He said that you cause fitna in many places. He stated that people like you are the reason for all the problems amongst the ranks of Ahlul Sunnah in the States, and a bunch of other garbage that I don't recall at the moment. Uh, but the audio is probably still online, still to this very day. But what I wanted to ask is, just for clarity's sake, what was the motivation of this guy warning against you publicly and every single accusation that he made against you was all built off lies? What was the motivation for a person like him to come do something like that? The quote unquote noble brother or noble elder or whatever claim that people make about him, where they're obviously ignorant to what nobility is. But anyway, what was the motivation in reality behind that type of foolishness?
That, and I'm gonna try my best to summarize it, because that is a, that might take 45 minutes to an hour just to get into the whole background.
Oh,
Really,
we got time.
you know what I mean, of that individual. But to try to unpack some of his claims. Oh yeah, his claim, I'm not known to the ulama. That's one of the bogus generalities that these guys they bring forward. They speak about one or two scholars and then they use ulama like it's every scholar, right? Which is just absurd. But they do that and they embellish, because that helps them make their weak stuff seem a little stronger. You know what I mean? And that's just a tactic, of people who are disingenuous. But like you mentioned, that obviously wasn't the fact. Certain mashayikh, yeah, maybe didn't know me because I didn't get a chance to meet them, right? But that don't mean there's not a single, scholar in the world that doesn't know me. So that was just foolish. As far as his claims that I made fitna here, I made fitna there, so on and so forth, right? Now listen, when I was younger, I was fiery, a lot more fiery than I am right now, right? Didn't have wisdom in every situation, right? And an individual that'll tell you straight at times, and I'm pretty sure not pretty sure, I know I rub people the wrong way. I rub some people the wrong way, right? So yeah, I bump heads with people here and there, so on and so forth. Hey, that's what he mean by fitna. Okay, so be it. Who's free from that? We all had bump heads with people, got into arguments, and so on and so forth. And I don't claim that has never happened. Yes, I've gotten into arguments with people and everything. But if you mean fitna as far as something that's averse to the dawah, then what is he referring to? Did he disagree with the whole Abu Muslimah issue? Did he think that perhaps maybe that we shouldn't have done that? There was a situation that had happened prior to that in Trenton, New Jersey, where the brothers, alhamdulillah, they had control over the masjid in Trenton, New Jersey. Okay, there were a group of hizbis, from people from innovators that had a strong attachment to that masjid. Now the brothers, they didn't do their due diligence in getting the getting the paperwork turned over or whatever the case is, right? So these hizbis, these innovators, they actually sued. They sued the masjid, It became a big thing in the news. Newsweek came down. They interviewed me, all this about this big case. They sued the masjid, cease and desist. They couldn't do anything, right? And they were going through this big court battle. At that time, I called Sheikh Hassan seeking advice. What do we do? This is what's happening right now. They have brought me in there as the imam. This was at a time where, I had left the job where I was working at the time in the data department of Johnson & Johnson. I came over and I was to be the imam. So I asked the Sheikh, what do we do? The Sheikh, he says, you don't fight these people in such a public way like this because it makes it look bad. And I put out a document that had mentioned that. So the Sheikh, he said, leave them and go establish another masjid. Don't fight them over that. If they took it to the point where they have actually taken you all to court to gain control over the masjid, don't continue in that. Leave. So I took the advice of Sheikh Hassan. It hit me through the grapevine. Perhaps this is what he's talking about. I said, well, he think that Hizbis was right? He think I shouldn't have took the advice of Sheikh Hassan? So he thinks that Sheikh Hassan was wrong and I was wrong for following Sheikh Hassan's advice. Is this what he means? Because that's the only thing that happened in Trenton. What else is he talking about? Right? So anyway, maybe me and one of the Hizbis got into an argument or something like this. And, so what is he saying? I shouldn't argue with the Hizbi, and maybe he thinks that, the Hizbi, he's siding with the Hizbi now. Like, what is he talking about? So that can't be it. Long story short, after I ran my brain ragged trying to figure out what is this man talking about? You know what I mean? I put it back on them, okay, what you say I make so much fitna. Give me some examples. When did I make fitna? What was the issue? Don't just say you made fitna. What was the fitna? What was the issue specifically? What did I do specifically? Give me some examples. It's so much. I didn't give me a few. 1, 2. Give me some examples. And I left that challenge for the world way back in 2013. Where's the fitna? Show me. Show me something specifically that you can call a fitna that necessitates that you treat me like I'm a bid'ah, right? None. The reality of it is that this man is arrogant, Abu Muhammad Maghribi, and he believes in his twisted little mind that his way is the right way. Now, I took issue with Abu Muhammad Maghribi, right? Yes. Prior to him warning against me, I did take issue with him. Why? I took issue with him because I found that he was extremely harsh to the Salafis while at the same time having sabrun tawil with the people of innovation. That rubbed me the wrong way. That was one point. Well, I kept saying, why are you in your mind, this is wisdom, utilizing all of this wisdom with the innovator, but your brother that's Salafi, that yes is a little rough around the edges, that comes from the streets. They come from the projects in the inner cities of America. They grew up hard, so they get it hard around the edges because they're hard around the edges. Be patient with those brothers, work with them, be easy with them, have forbearance with them, and direct them to what is good. You don't want to do that. You X them off. You're not going to deal with them, and you warn against them in private. But then at the same time, you're going to all of these masajid that the people are not Salafi, straight Hizbi. That with them within itself is not necessarily the issue. With them within itself, going to them to teach them, it's not necessarily the issue. As long as there's no strings attached, and no fear, so on and so forth to the end of it, you can go to them and you teach them, no problem. But that wasn't the issue I took. The issue I took is not only are you going over there and having all of this quote unquote wisdom, using all this wisdom with them and being easy with them, just because they're allowing you to come now, you're coming back and labeling that masjid a Salafi masjid. What in the world? They Salafi because they let you give classes there? Who are you, Yani? Man, what do you think about yourself? That because they let you come, now they Salafi. Because now the people in the area who trust you believe that's a Salafi masjid. And we know from experience how some of these masajid go. They may let you come and teach, And then sometimes, oftentimes, what happens? They'll tell you, thank you for your services. I no longer need it. You go about your way now. And then they continue on with whatever it is they want to do. That's contrary to the dawah. So now you're going to bring all these people over here, making them believe in Salafi Masjid. And now, so when the day come, they kick you out. What, the brothers now going to stay? Some are going to stay because you said it's a Salafi Masjid. And now they're bringing in people. You understand? And he was defending a masjid. The mudir from it was a registered, what'd you say? He was like one of the official spokesmen for ICNA, or ISNA, one of them two, right? And the like, but they okay, but then the Salafis you being harsh with, yeah, I took issue with that. So I wouldn't mention his name, but I will talk about that issue, how you have to have patience with the people who are Salafi. And if you're going to interact with the people of innovation, it's not going to be like this, not like that. And then you're harsh with the Salafis. I couldn't accept that. I couldn't accept that. So that became an issue. And then, I'll say this and leave this here for now. The issue with Abu Muhammad Maghribi and those people who were with him, who I believe pushed him, made him the front man, so that if things didn't go quite right, he'll be the fall guy, right? And you saw that when he first said what he said, and then everybody came and they wrote their names saying we agree, the du'at are in agreement in their stance against Abdis Salaam Al Juyaanee, right? Mm-hmm. When we start responding, started from 2013 all the way until Sheikh Rabi told everybody take the warnings down. This is not correct, so on and so forth. Basically saying they was wrong. They was wrong in what they did. Take the warnings down. If the warnings were justified, why take them down? Leave them up. Sheikh said take them down. Take them all down. You understand? Like, when that happened, all those people that signed their names in his corner, where was they at? Mums was the word. Crickets. No one came to his defense. You understand? Because if things went wrong, he was going to wear that by himself. So they used him, and he was foolish for doing that. But the long story short, with him and those who were behind him, it all boiled down to control. Not necessarily in my situation, but in other situations, that control link was linked to money and power. And this what was motivating them to do what they do. And anybody who had a platform that will not bow down to their authority had to go. Now, me personally, I'm not kissing no ring, and I'm not drinking nobody's Kool-Aid, period. And they can run tell whoever. I ain't drinking nobody's Kool-Aid, and I ain't kissing nobody's ring. And they knew that was a situation. And the lies that Shadeed Muhammad, may Allah Ta'ala guide him, had said, where he made it seem like Salafi Inc., this imaginary crew, was being controlled and taking orders from Abu Khadija. That's a lie. Abu Khadija don't run nothing here, and he never has. He never gave no one no orders, because it doesn't work like that. You understand? I never was under his umbrella. There may have been times where there were certain things that were agreed upon because there were certain clear violations, right? But it was never a situation that I was taking orders from those guys over there in Birmingham. Nah, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. The same way I ain't take orders from the guys in Birmingham, same way I don't take no orders and never took orders from the guys over in Germantown. You understand? The same way that I never took nothing from Abu Muhammad al-Maghribi, although he tried to on many occasions get me to make him my leader. And that's not going to happen. He didn't like that. So I had to go. I had a platform, independent. They don't like that. Can't be controlled. They don't like that. I had to go. And it wasn't, and then of course, they're Salafi. I'm not saying they're not Salafi, right? So there were certain things, times that, yeah, we agreed on certain things, right? That, were right. And some things at the time, I felt was right. And this was the way to go, which is a whole nother story, you know what I mean? But there was never a situation I was taking nobody's orders. Ain't nobody gonna tell me what to do and how to do it. I didn't become Muslim for that. In fact, one of the vows that I had made to myself before I became Muslim was that I would never blind follow any human being, period. Before I became Muslim, I said I would never blind follow any human being, period. I don't care who they are. And I only went back on that one time in my life, And that's after I became Muslim and I learned the status of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then I said, okay, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's the only one I'll blind follow. Meaning he's the only one that I will follow what he's saying, and there's no questions. That's not blind following because you're following, yani that's ittiba'. That's following the truth, right? But he's the only one who I said, okay, I will follow him. Whatever he say, that's what I'm gonna do. Sami'na wa ata'na. But anybody else, no. It's like Imam Malik said, "Kull yu'khad min qawlihi wa yutrak illa sahib hadha al-qabr wa ashara ila qabr an-nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam." Everyone you can take from their statements and you can leave it, except for the owner of that of this grave, and he points to the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, so because they couldn't get that, I wouldn't bow the ring or drink no Kool-Aid. That I had to be taken out, and they tried their best, but. And this is one thing, and I'm here on this point, inshallah. But this is one thing I will say, is that no one should ever be scared of anything a human being could do. Never compromise on what is true. Never compromise on what is right, because you fear what an individual may say about you, right? Or you, and because really, this is all it boils down to. Because at the end of the day, they tried their best. They tried their best to hit me with the worst, right? They all came against me. They were talking about me on Twitter, talking about me on Facebook, still talking about me. And you know what? Who cares? I don't care. They ain't doing nothing. You understand what I'm saying? Like my situation. They are not heavy enough to move the needle in my situation. They're not adversely affecting anything in my life. So what I'm supposed to be scared of? What? You're gonna do a tweet against me, brother? Oh no, who cares? You're gonna warn people against me? Who cares? Because if you oppress me, you take anything from me, you think I'm not gonna get that back Yawm al-Qiyamah? So if you want to talk about me, you want to lie about me, you want to invent things and that's fine. Hold that for me. For a day I really need it. Yawm al-Qiyamah, inshallah ta'ala, if you took from me, I want it back. And I want it back in full. You understand what I'm saying? So they have nothing. So my statement to the people, those who are still intimidated by these individuals, don't be intimidated by the likes of them. If they stop being your friends, you know what? You didn't need friends like that. If these are individuals who have such a fanaticism that they're trying to tell you that the sheikh's word is a hujjah, that's not from Salafiyah. Leave them people alone. If they're telling you that these noble brothers have said such and such, and you're going to take it because they said so, that's not from Salafiyah. So leave that. You don't need them type of people. And don't be scared of what they may do, because at the end of the day, they really can't do nothing. They are impoverished, weak, marginalized themselves. You understand? They can't do nothing, nobody anyway. So who cares? So I tell everyone, if you feel a little afraid, don't be afraid. Forget them. Allah Ta'ala will suffice you. Do what is right. Stick to what is right. Stick to Salafiyah. And leave them people alone that's trying to utilize the deen and making up false principles to manipulate people for their aim and for their agenda. And alhamdulillah, once that became known to me, the likes of who they really are, that was it, man. Like I told them guys down there in North Lake and in North Palm Beach, whenever it's clear to me that a person has an agenda outside of pushing the truth, I will not work with them, period. No. I won't work with them, period. Why? Because I don't got time for that. The only agenda supposed to be is to push the truth, so Allah's deen is uppermost, the sunnah is spread. You try and do something outside of that, I don't want nothing to do with you. I'm good. You know, and that's clear. And that's the kind of people that they have proven to be, those who I know of them to be. So I don't want nothing to do with them. And anybody in their right mind who don't want nothing to do with them, forget them. And don't worry about them. Anybody who's still scared that they might tweet about you, so what? Let them tweet about you. Join the club. They ain't, look, I'm still here. Mm-hmm. Still. So, you know, let that be your example.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So because now we've reached the 2-hour mark, I kind of want to end the conversation here, but I did have another question for you that I think is an important question. So I'm just looking at the timer and making sure that we don't go too far. Well, well, actually, I have two more questions, but I think I'll just end it with this question. What are some of the current projects that you're working on, regardless if it be classes or whatever the case may be? And if you can, because Salafi Inc., there's a lot of controversy surrounding around that name now, from that may have Uslan started with these people that you were just talking about and mentioning, but now it's other people have run with the name Salafi Inc. and have attributed to Salafi Inc. that which isn't true. So what are the things that you are currently doing class wise and other than that? And could you just clarify what exactly is Salafi Inc.?
Well, alhamdulillah, the classes right now being taught here in Apopka, with everything going on with the pandemic, alhamdulillah, the classes have resumed in the masjid just one day a week, every Saturday between Maghrib and Isha right now. Once the time goes back, inshallah ta'ala, it will be after Isha, and that is going over the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi. And then the other weekly class is the explanation of important lessons by Imam bin Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala. Those are the two current classes. Again, the website is still there, www.salafinc.com. Articles still go up there periodically. There is a podcast that is I'm working on right now, Everyday Sunnah, where things are going up there and available via podcast. Likewise on YouTube. Likewise, Salafi Inc. Has a YouTube page, SoundCloud account, Twitter, Facebook, mashallah, across various platforms, social media platforms. We're currently working here to expand the efforts at the masjid here in Apopka, and the like. So, alhamdulillah, there's a lot going on, still busy. And one of the things, though, and I do want to point out, which I think is just from full disclosure, is that I work a full-time job, 40 hours a week, full-time job, right? What I do at the masjid is on a part-time basis, at this moment. And most of the time that I've been involved in da'wah, this is how it has been. There's only been 1 year that I have only worked, for lack of a better term, for the masjid. That was my time in Durham. Even when I was at North Palm Beach, I still would tutor and do things on the side and the like. And the reason being is because I never want to put myself in a position where people could manipulate me or have leverage over me financially, right? So I always strove for financial independence. And this was the way that Allah Ta'ala had blessed me with being able to do that. So Salafi Inc. within itself, it is a publishing company, right? But, and this is really like this new controversy, which really, is annoying. It's annoying at best, at the end of the day, really not doing nothing like the other guys, but it's annoying. Is the comparison that Salafi Inc. is like Salafi Publications. That's not the case at all. Meaning that we're not 100% like them, right? Are there similarities? Of course. They're Muslim, we're Muslim. They're Salafi, we're Salafi, right? Their thing is called Salafi Publications, mine's called Salafi Inc. So yeah, it got Salafi in the name. Theirs with an I, mine's with a Y, right? So but that's, really, that's where it differs. But as far as using that publication, because Salafi Inc. is a publication company, we have a number of books that have been published, translated and published, right? And that's basically what Salafi Inc. is. It's a website, it's a publishing company, it's a SoundCloud with the classes and things that go out over it, a platform for dawah. That's it. It's not a crew. There are no men that are linked to Salafi Inc. that we're known like we the Salafi Inc. crew. If you say something to one of what you say to all, no, it's a company. It's a company that's there to help push the dawah. It's not a company that I eat off of. It's not a company that I'm trying to utilize to make money off of the dawah and stuff like that. That's not what I do. Others, whatever. That's not what I do, right? So that comparison that he brought is very annoying. Also, the fact that when it comes to the extremism that those guys have fallen into, that's not us. We don't do the likes of those things. You don't find the myself or the brothers like yourself who they put Salafi Inc. title on, which is we work together, alhamdulillah. And the platform, that's the name of it. So the classes that come out is under that platform. You know what I mean? But as far as like being a crew and we this group of Salafi Inc., that makes no sense. But in any event, for argument's sake, okay, us as a collective of brothers who work together in dawah, when have we ever been like them in the sense of, and I'm being very specific, in the sense of, when have we been known to speak ill of the ulama? When have we been known to speak ill of the ulama and to drop ulama who are Salafi, right? For Allah musta'an, that was not necessitate that anyone be dropped. When are we known to do that? When have we been known to drop all of the ulama and all of the mashayikh, I should say, inside of Kuwait? When do you find us saying, don't take from Sheikh Anjani, don't take from Sheikh Ahmed Subiri, don't take from you don't find us saying that. That's what these guys are saying. When do you find us speaking disrespectfully about Sheikh Muhammad bin Hadi, referring to him with vile names, or don't even have enough dignity to say his name, but render his name to an acronym? When do you find us doing that with any one of the mashayikh, whether we agree with them or not? Whether we agree with them or not. When do you find us doing the likes of that? When do you find us attacking the likes of Sheikh Farquz, the likes of the mashayikh? You don't find that from us. So to say that we are like them, that's disrespectful, and that's a lie. That's oppression. That's a lie, and that's oppression. And whoever is running around saying the likes of that, they got to correct that. And if they don't, then inshallah ta'ala, if they owe us Yawm al-Qiyamah, we want it in full. Period. Because that's incorrect. That's incorrect. You understand what I'm saying? So that truly needs to be addressed. That Salafi Inc., it's a platform. It's a company. That's it. It's a platform. It's a company. That's it. It's not a crew. We're not a gang of individuals. We're not a cult. We're not anyone who calls to blind obedience and the like. That's not us. That's other people. That's not us. So don't put what's on them on us. If there's stuff that myself or any of the brothers who I work with, if we fall into error, present our mistakes so that we may deal with them, inshallah ta'ala. But anything outside of that, you can keep your false claims and your false accusations and go ahead with it. May Allah ta'ala guide those individuals who are upon the likes of that foolishness. But Allah musta'an, Salafi Inc. is just a publication and a platform. That's it.
Yeah. No, it's crazy because I saw one claim as if, like, say for instance, using myself as an example, that I can't put anything out unless it's given okay by some type of hierarchy. like people are on cadet status, cadet, lieutenant, sergeant, general, colonel, and that's for so on. And when I saw that statement, I said to myself, I think you guys got us confused with another group of people claiming to be Salafi. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not us. My platform is pure Islam. I put whatever I want on it. I don't seek anybody's permission to put what I want to put on pure Islam.
That's right.
And just like other brothers who people may connect to us, they have their platforms and they put their stuff out. They don't check with anybody. There's nobody that has ever checked with me before they put something out on their particular platform. I'm pretty sure it's the same way with you.
Right.
So it's like, people kind of live in a imaginary, in a fantasy world. And I think it's because, Allah knows best. At the end of the day, the hustle of all of it goes back to the whispers of Ash-Shaytan. you know. But I do believe that there's some slight Negro motives behind some of these claims as well. It could be just from common crab in a barrel mentality, or whatever the case may be, whatever it is, you know, because I'm not going to spend too much time trying to assess it and trying to analyze it. The only thing that I would say to the people in general is that if you hear somebody say something and make a claim against somebody that's negative, have them back it.
Right.
Have them back it. We have made several claims against people as it relates to people like Abu Muhammad al-Maghribi, Hassan al-Somali, Anwar Wright. There's write-ups, there's audios, audio recorded speeches. But these things that we've said against these individuals from the standpoint of their criticism of Salafis based off non-issues, sensationalism, overblowing something, you know, making something seem to be other than what its true reality is. Their overt double standards and that's forth and so on. We're able to back all this stuff with factual things that have taken place from their statements and or actions.
Right.
So this is how things should take place if it comes down to some type of criticism being made against somebody publicly. So my thing would be for anybody that listens to somebody say Salafi Inc. is this, Salafi Inc. is that, Salafi Inc. or you know, and they run off of whatever it is they run off with, make them back with whatever they're saying factually, or else just dismiss what they're saying.
Yeah.
Dismiss what they're saying because it's of no benefit. It's of no benefit whatsoever. At any rate, you know, I don't know. Is there anything? Do you have any last thoughts or anything that you want to touch on before we conclude this session, or anything that you may want to direct the people towards, and that's forth and so on?
Just in general, just one quick point is that um, I just advise everyone to learn and to study the principles of the Dawah to Salafiyya. This way, it allows you to divorce yourselves from needing the likes of these soundbite type of refutations, right? Stay away from so-and-so. Why? Because noble brother such and such said. All right, why? Let us take the principles of Salafiyya that necessitate that we drop somebody and we stay away from them and we warn against them, so on and so forth. And let's see how they apply to this situation. But as far as because of brother so-and-so said, it's not sufficient, right? To truly understand what is Salafiyya so that we know what it is not, to learn for ourselves and not to suffice ourselves with being spoon-fed from others, and to get out of this mentality where we feel we just want to belong to anything, whether it's right or wrong. We just want to be down. We just want to belong. We have to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as relates to this and always connect ourselves to the truth, empty our hearts from everything except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and connect ourselves unto that which is pleasing unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether the people are pleased or they're not pleased. And to be scared of Allah Ta'ala's displeasure, whether the people are pleased with us or not. So it is of extreme importance that we strive hard in doing this. And also, I don't want anyone to misunderstand or to take negatively what had to be spoken about and explained. But it was important because it was these things were never spoken about and directly and explained, in this way. And I will say that what was mentioned was only the top of the iceberg. That was it. It was the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more that could be said, a lot more that we could have gone into, which is an indication that I believe was well known, that years of silence of directly speaking like I'm speaking right now, it wasn't due to an inability, nor was it due to any type of fear or anything like this. But it was trying to handle the situation very tactfully and using wisdom and not trying to make it worse than what it needed to be. However, if things need to be gone into and explained, then there's never a problem, in doing that. But at the end of it, there's a lot that needs to be done, and to waste too much time on the likes of these individuals on both sides, it's irrelevant. But at the same time, if we have to respond, we will respond directly and unapologetically. But other than that, we don't have time to even remember the existence of the likes of these individuals. We have to move forward. And anyone who comes with the soundbite dawah, or the soundbite, refutation, or they're fitna makers. Okay, like you said, how? Show me the fitna. Or they're like, on the flip side, you got the other guys talking about they like spubs. Okay, how? You can't bring no soundbite dawah in that. I said, like spubs. Okay, how? The same way they blame the other side of having dual standards and things of this nature, right? Double standards and the like. They themselves fall into double standards. For the people they defend, they want all the proof and evidence in the world, and even one is not enough. They want more, right? But then when it comes to other people, you can just say they like spubs and then that's it. I mean, really, how many times do people have to be tricked before they realize they're being tricked? I mean, how many times you're going to fall for the same thing before you realize you keep falling? So in a way that is escaped is by learning what is the Dawud Salafi, seeking knowledge, learning Arabic, studying with the mashaykh, the ulama, connecting yourselves and freeing yourselves from the need of translators. This is from the greatest means of escaping a lot of this nonsense, when you connect yourself and maintain your manhood and your womanhood. Don't be like those individuals who have access to the ulama, but still allowing these individuals to direct them. That's pitiful. And don't fashion yourself after a pitiful individual. So this would be my advice in general. And alhamdulillah, and inshallah ta'ala, this will be the first of many of the likes of these type of conversations, because there's much that need to be discussed on many issues,
I agree.
So inshallah ta'ala, we'll save whatever is left until then.
Episode, the next episode.
Hey, to the next episode, inshallah ta'ala.
So right at this, because you're right, we definitely need to talk more about institution building.
That's
We need to
right.
talk more about the solutions, viable solutions to the problems currently plaguing our communities. I hear a lot of people talking, and they're giving solutions that are clearly, uh, or like leading people into a burning building, so to speak.
That's right.
People are angry concerning some of the problems that are facing the community, but yet and still, with that anger, we still have to come up with positive and effective solutions, not solutions that people have been doing within the society over and over and over again, and it still hasn't gotten people anywhere. That still hasn't affected any real change, and thus forth and so on. So I definitely want to have you back on for urban du'a dialogue, to discuss some of these things. At this point now, I think I'm going to sign off with the Facebook crowd and the Facebook group. If you can't, just stay on Zoom with me, inshallah. But I'm gonna sign off of Facebook. I'm gonna end this session. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.